सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। रामो राजमणिः सदा विजयते रामं रमेशं भजे। रामेणाभिहता निशाचरचमू रामाय तस्मै नमः। रामान्नास्ति परायणं परतरं रामस्य दासोऽस्म्यहम्। रामे चित्तलयः सदा भवतु मे भो राम मामुद्धर। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। Hari Om everyone. In the first 5 shlokas of Drigdrisha Viveka, Vidyaranya Swamiji captured the essence of what he wants to tell us. So with the seer seen pair, the main point that we should take away from those 5 verses are that seer of thoughts is Sakshi. It's been a while since we met, so I'll just quickly recap those things. Just as if I'm seeing an object, that is a proof of my eyes being there. In the same way, if I'm seeing thoughts, that is a proof of Sakshi being there. But for this sadhaka, to get more clarity, there are more questions that come, doubts that come. All of that should be used to strengthen this understanding. So then the sadhaka asked, several questions, that only some things appear sentient while others appear insentient. Why is that? And you said consciousness is all pervading. So why do only certain things show sentiency? That is where came the 6th verse, Chitchaya Veshato Buddhau Bhanam Dhistu Dvidasita. Means it is not because of consciousness that the sentiency is appearing in some places and not in some places. It is the nature of the medium. That medium which has ability to reflect consciousness, their sentiency will express. So what we call as buddhi, or the subtle body, mind, antahkarana, whichever name we give it, that has ability to reflect consciousness. And everything else, consciousness is pervading there also. Existence of those things are coming from consciousness alone, Chaitanya. But the Chit aspect is not getting reflected in those things because there the medium is not conducive for the sentiency to get reflected, consciousness to get reflected. That was answer to the first question. Now the second question was, when I think about myself, I don't feel I am changeless. That is a topic that we were discussing right now. I feel I am going through experiences, all thoughts are in me. I don't feel that I am the witness of an angry thought. I feel I am angry. And this is the dilemma we have in meditation and even otherwise, that Vedanta is telling one thing and my experience is something else. So that is where this whole analysis of what is the role of buddhi and what is the nature of sakshi. That distinction Vidyaranya Swamiji did from 7th verse until the 12th verse. He spoke about what is the nature of antahkarana and what is the nature of ahankara. Right? Ahankara and antahkarana. That is how he has split. what we call as ahankara and mind also, you can say. But together, that is the entity which goes through these different experiences and not Sakshi. That is the main point that was covered until verse number 12. Then another question was, this distinction was made between Sakshi, which is Drashta or Drug, and everything else. We said it is Drushya Vastu. So the question was, are these two independently existing or does one depend on the other? That is where came this verse which spoke about the role of Maya. That there is only one entity which appears many because of Maya Shakti. And what are the two aspects we saw? One was Avarana Shakti, which is hiding power of Maya, or non-apprehension, that is how we call it, and Vikshepa Shakti, which is projecting power or misapprehension. Not knowing my nature as consciousness, I take myself to be ahankara, and because of that, I become karta, means a doer, and that doer has lot of other vasanas, other desires that it has to get results from. That is why we are given fields of experiences, which is this world. That was Vikshepa Shakti we saw. Vikshepa Shakti Lingadi Brahmandantam Jagat Srujet, 13th verse. And now we will look at Avarana. But while discussing about Vikshepa Shakti, which is the right hand side of that line, Vidyaranya Swamiji introduced us to what is the nature of creation according to Vedanta. So once we have understood that there is only one entity and not two, so there are not two entities like which is consciousness and the world. There is consciousness which alone appears as the world. Just like that water appears as a wave. Or even better example is the rope appears as a snake. There are no two entities. So this thinking we should keep doing again and again and see how we can dissolve these names and forms back into consciousness. Dissolution will not happen by physically destroying it, right? It has to be through vichara, through thinking. Just like here also, we don't need to dissolve that wave to understand that it is of the nature of water. Just through knowledge, we can understand how this one thing is appearing as many. We'll chant this verse now that we had just covered it briefly. We'll touch upon some key points and move forward. Antardrugdrushyorbhedam bahishcha brahma saragayoh आवृणोत्यपरा शक्तिः सा samsarasya karanam. Now Vidyaranya Swamiji is using the words that we are familiar with. He takes this and says, Avarana Shakti, the hiding power of Maya, operates at two levels. He says one is inside and one is outside. Now again, this is just a way for helping us understand. If you really ask Vidyaranya Swamiji, he says there is no inside outside also. But since we are familiar with body, it's easier for us to analyze that way. So what is it that Avarana Shakti does? So one, its operation happens inside. There it hides the difference between Sakshi, Drug Drushyayoho Bhedam, Antaha Drug Drushyayoho Bhedam. My nature is Sakshi and I understand myself as Ahankara or this Buddhi. And I don't see them as two distinct entities. That is what happens inside. And outside, that difference between consciousness or Brahman And the names and forms which are there, they are also not seen differently. Inside, Sakshi and Buddhi are not seen differently. Outside, names and forms and Brahman, both of them, we end up mixing for each other. And what was and Vidyadhara Swamiji said, this is the cause of samsara, not Vikshepa Shakti. Appearance of Buddhi, appearance of world, Swamiji says is not actually a cause of bondage. Not knowing that difference between Sakshi and Buddhi and this understanding that only one is real, that fact becomes cause of bondage. So inside, what is the cause? He says bhoktrutva and kartrutva. I am the experiencer. I think experiencer is a better word than enjoyer for bhoktrutva. Huh? I am the experiencer is what is my notion. And I am the doer. I am karta, that I start feeling. Outside, instead of seeing world as of the nature of consciousness, I end up seeing it as a bhogya vastu, something which I can enjoy. Because what I see right now is only the name and form. Now you see, from a sadhana perspective also, we should understand this point here. Karma yoga, what it does is, it makes us a sattvic karta first. Sattvic karta means karta who has lot of values, who doesn't consider himself as, who considers himself as devotee of Bhagwan. That is a sattvic karta. No pride, no ego. That is the first step of sadhana. So you see that antardrugdrshayor bhedam, right? That is the point we are discussing. Karma yoga and all other sadhanas, they will help us become a sattvic karta, and that itself will reduce lot of conflicts, or it will make this mind a very happy mind. What Vedanta will do is, it will take us to the next step. It will say, I am akarta. This is what we call as transcending the mind. But transcending the mind is not by physically doing anything to the mind. It is just through knowledge, knowing that in me, Sakshi, mind is just an appearance. This sense of doership is just an appearance. And I am not limited by this one individual or one entity. I am that all pervading akarta Sakshi. That is the role of sadhana and how it leads us into knowledge. Even if I'm a sattvic karta, notion of finitude is not removed through karma yoga. Notion of finitude is removed through this knowledge. And all the sadhana that we have done remains where it is. It doesn't get taken away. Even after knowing I am Sakshi, with badita ahankara. Badita ahankara means negated ahankara. That person is able to transact in the world. So this is that role, even for bhoktrutva, right? What does karma yoga do? Instead of having bhoga or considering I am bhokta, karma yoga gives us prasada buddhi. While receiving results, instead of being bhokta, we have the hat of a devotee, where everything that comes is prasada. And Jnanam will come and tell me, after having done this sadhana, Jnanam will come and tell me that I am not of the nature of bhokta, I am abhokta Brahma, abhokta Sakshi. And even while I was thinking myself to be karta, bhokta, I was ever Sakshi only. But I was not able to distinguish myself between these two roles. I always ended up mixing one thing for the another. More we appreciate this point, more clarity we will get on what is the role of Jnanam, what is the Jnana Yoga, what we call, how does it work? Is it in conflict with sadhana? Is it in conflict with devotion? So our answer is no. No, nothing is in conflict with any of these sadhanas. In fact, all the sadhanas will help us absorb this fact more and more. Right? Several places we have discussed that only a sattvic mind can disown that mind. All this thinking has to be done by the mind alone. Okay, so that was this particular verse, that appearance of duality is not the real bondage, means Vikshepa Shakti is not cause of samsara. It is this avarana which has to go away. That is why we have to do thorough shravanam, think about this, and then own it up. Now, how this mix-up happens, there was a question last time. It happens at 3 levels. When we say, I am the nature of Sakshi, I am of the nature of consciousness, consciousness has 3 indicators. So the 3 indicators are Sat, Chit, and Ananda. Sat means consciousness is of the nature of existence, Sat Swarupa. Chit means it is of the nature of knowledge, nature of consciousness. And both are the same, huh? They are not 3 different things. What is of the nature of existence, that alone is sentient, it is conscious. And that alone is infinite, which we call as Ananda. Sat, Chit, Ananda. It is just like saying blue, fragrant, big lotus. Blue, fragrant, and big lotus. Now, these 3 words, blue, fragrant, and big, are not 3 different things. They are referring to the same entity, the lotus. So, in the same way, Sat, Chit, and Ananda are referring to my own true nature, which is Sakshi. Now, what happens there is, when we see the world outside, one thinks that existence belongs to objects. Where does Sat belong to? Sat belongs to Atma. Sat belongs to Sakshi. And I hope if I use these words interchangeably, everybody is comfortable. Huh? Atma, Sakshi, Brahma, all are referring to the same entity. One thinks existence belongs to objects. This is the mix-up. Just like when we see that snake appearing on the rope, existence doesn't belong to that snake. It is borrowing its existence from the rope. And if I don't know that fact, I will think that snake has its own existence. So this is that mix-up which happens with Sat. With Chit, the second entity, one thinks that the sentiency which is there belongs to Buddhi itself. Means ability to know, ability to speak, they are reflecting in the sense organs and mind, no doubt, but they originally belong to consciousness. Just like when we see moonlight, moon doesn't have its own power of illumination. It's only reflected from the sun. And if I don't know the fact, I will think that moon is illuminating at night. So that is this mix-up. And actually speaking, these 2 mix-up, wherever they are, they are. It is not too bothering. The most critical point is the third one, when one starts thinking that Ananda or happiness which is experienced belongs to objects outside. This is another mix-up which is happening, and the most critical one, which we are very much interested in. Swarupa of Ananda is always of Chaitanya. Means Sakshi's nature is of happiness. My real nature is of happiness. But because of the mix-up which is happening, I start thinking happiness is coming from some object outside. Now, it's a very interesting topic to see how this mix-up happens. It is said our mind has predominantly three types of thoughts. One is a quiet, or you can call, mind has three states. Huh? One is called a quiet state. That quiet state is when our desires are fulfilled, right? When what we want, that is achieved, then that mind becomes quiet for a fraction of a second, but it becomes quiet. When we have values, kindness, compassion, any of those values, then mind becomes quiet. Forgiveness. When we have dispassion, vairagya, then mind becomes quiet. In that quiet mind, there is reflection of this happiness. Okay, the first state of mind is quiet state of mind. And because that thought has become quietened, this reflection is available very clearly in that mind. Now you see, let us say I loved to drink coffee. And I have a particular way in which I have to make that coffee. I don't, huh? I'm just giving an example. And I got it. Just the moment I got it, mind becomes quiet because the desire is fulfilled. And I feel, oh my God, such a, so much happiness, such a nice feeling I have while drinking that coffee. Now, what is the data that I'm gathering? That every time I drink a coffee, there is some joy in this coffee. What question we should ask is, where is that joy experienced? Is it experienced outside in the coffee, or is it experienced in the mind? Obviously, it is experienced in the mind, not outside in any object. So the question we should ask next is, does mind even have its own ability to exist first? Right? Because mind itself borrows existence from consciousness. And if mind is not there, does it mean that I cannot be happy? This data also we see. In deep sleep, mind is not there, yet we are happy. So that should take us to this understanding that happiness is my own nature. It is getting reflected in certain conditions of the mind. Now you see that same coffee that was there, if let us say for some reason, some mix-up happened, either more sugar or less sugar, whatever. Now the same coffee if I drink, now the state of mind which was a quiet state of mind, which it would have gone into, that becomes the second state, which is agitated state. In agitated state of mind, there is no happiness. Then there is not even a reflection of happiness. So with that, we start feeling that this object has given me sorrow now. Same object, which could have given me joy, because something has changed, I start feeling it has given me sorrow. That is the second state of mind, agitated state. Third state is called dull state, where there are different kinds of emotions and everything which just take the mind away. Fear, anxiety, all those belong to the third state. This analysis is done in 15th chapter of Panchadashi, Brahmanande Vishayanandam. In Brahmananda alone, all Vishayananda is included. Means what we call as happiness gained from objects is not actually coming from the object. It is my own Ananda getting reflected in a particular state of mind. At the most, what that object has contributed is in getting to that state of mind. Means it has that thought which was there of a coffee, that has gone away. I only created that thought, and because that object has come, that object has quietened that thought. Now, if something changes in the object, this thought won't go away, it will transform into an agitating thought. And who is going through all this? Ananda Swarupa Brahma. That is where Vedanta takes us back to the source, right? It says at mind level, if we can be independent of objects, or at least have sattvic ways of quietening the mind, right? One who can have values or virtues, that is a sattvic way of quietening the mind. In that mind, this reflection of happiness is readily available. And through knowledge, we know I am not even that reflected happiness, I am of the nature of happiness. So, both of these things this jnani can enjoy. That Ananda Mimamsa is a beautiful topic because Sat getting reflected, Chit getting reflected, we don't connect to it many a times. So what, existence is getting reflected. But one thing we should understand is all three are same thing. Huh? They are not different things. Sat is not different from Chit and Ananda. But what we are concerned is this happiness. Sometimes you should start thinking about being happy independent of objects. That example we had discussed earlier, one Swamiji, our Divine Life Society, the president of it many years ago, Chidananji Maharaj, his satsangs were very, very popular. Popular meaning he used to sing bhajans and, very nice messages he used to say during satsang. And his Nama Sankirtanam used to go on for so long, sometimes, just taking Bhagwan's name, and you would get absorbed in Nama Sankirtanam. But right after that, he would stop and with a loud voice, he would ask everybody, are you all happy? Means, did you all, get that glimpse of happiness? Now, where did it come from? Did it come from eating a sweet, or did it come from, getting something? Or was it our own joy that got reflected in a quiet mind? He said that is the happiness we should seek to discover. So that is this verse, and how this mix up happens. More we can think about it, more we will benefit. We'll just chant this verse. Now Vidyaranya Swamiji is taking us into what is the definition of a jiva. Because we said this mix up happening inside is bhoktrutva and kartrutva, right? That is samsara. Now he is focusing more on that and telling us who is a jiva. Sakshinah purato bhati, Sakshinah purato bhati, Lingam dehena sanyutam, Lingam dehena sanyutam, Chitichhaya samaveshat, Chitichhaya samaveshat, Jivasyadvyavaharikah, Jivasyadvyavaharikah, Sakshinah purato bhati, Lingam dehena sanyutam, Chitichhaya samaveshat, Jivasyadvyavaharikah. This verse is the precise definition of who is a jiva. Anytime if you want to have some clarity about jiva, we should come to this verse, 16th verse of Drigdrishya Viveka. It says there are 5 entities which together when they come, that constitutes a jiva. What are those 5 entities? We'll see in the next class. Okay. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namah. Harihi Om. We'll take some questions that were submitted last time. So this question is regarding Maya. Why should Maya even exist in the first place? If you ask Vedantin, they will say that is our question. We are saying there is only Brahma. Who said that Maya is an existing entity? Here we should understand whenever topic of Maya is discussed, it is just to systematically define what we are experiencing right now. If I am of the nature of consciousness, why do I experience sattva, rajas, tamas in me? I see that this mind has sometimes sattva guna, it goes into rajas and it goes into tamas sometimes. And if that is our experience, we need to find a way to come out of it and then inquire. That is why this whole description of Maya is given. It is not to establish Maya. We want to establish Brahma. We want to establish consciousness is that one reality. But our experience is something different. So that is why topic of Maya is discussed. It is like, a doorway for us to enter into nature of consciousness. Inquire into consciousness. That doorway is called Maya. Sakshi means seeing without judgment. So what is the value of making corrections to our equipment, especially if we are not the doers? So that word Sakshi also we should understand. Sakshi means Atma. Sakshi means of the nature of Brahma. It doesn't have any action in it, like this statement, right? Sakshi means seeing without judgment. Sakshi is of the nature of illumining. It doesn't have this notion of having a judgment or no judgment, nothing of that sort. So that is why those indicators that we discussed of consciousness in the 5th verse, that is most important. Nirakara, it is without any kind of shape, never becomes drishya. Because here if we say Sakshi means seeing without judgment, it seems like it is another person doing some kind of action. So that is why we should be careful when we think about Sakshi. It is not another entity. It is me, myself, and removing all other things I have included in Sakshi, what remains, that is its nature. So even seeing without judgment, we should not start objectifying Sakshi. What is the value of making corrections to our equipment, especially if we are not the doers? The good news about this, mix-up is that Sakshi is unaffected by doership, by the mind, etc. But the bad news about that is mind and Sakshi will always appear together. If I have this notion that one day will come when I will transcend the mind and establish myself only in Sakshi, it is said that day will never come. Because both will always go together and they will appear together. So if I have to be with that mind all the time, then I might as well do this correction. Right? If it's a movie which is appearing, I might as well watch a good movie. Right? Why unnecessarily watch some movie that is frightening or evoking a lot of other emotions? So that is this point. Even to get to this fact and get established in this knowledge, we need a purified mind. Mind will not, Guruji has written somewhere in the commentary, whenever we start inquiring into the mind will stop us from inquiring. He says that is the impurity in the mind. Means it's, somewhere it will take our attention because it is afraid of this inquiry into the mind. That he says, fear of losing that individuality, where we should not see fear, there this mind will show some fear. So that is why purity of mind is emphasized. This question we discussed, but because it is in a different context, I hope it clarifies it more. I had said that mind reflects Ananda, happiness. Mind reflects Ananda. Is this referring to the mind as seat of emotions and indecision, or as antakarana as a whole? My understanding was that mind is of the nature of doubt, sankalpa vikalpatmakam manaha. And when there is doubt or agitation, mind is disturbed. When doubt or agitation is quietened, then mind is quiet and it can be transcended. If Ananda is reflected in the mind, then how is it perceived? If mind can be transcended when quiet. Basically, what we should understand here is quietening the mind is not transcending the mind. Quietening the mind is one step. Transcending the mind happens through knowledge. Happens by knowing that in me, the pure consciousness, mind is an appearance. So that is called transcending the mind. Non-perception of the mind is not called as transcending the mind. That happens in deep sleep also. Mind is not perceived. We don't say we have transcended the mind in deep sleep. Mind is not perceived in deep sleep. But understanding that this mind is an appearance, it doesn't have its own reality, that is called as transcending the mind. Now, even if that mind appears back again, this sadhaka has already transcended the mind. Perception of the mind does not bother anymore. That is the power of knowledge. That is the power of Vedanta. Examples are easier to understand. That blueness of the sky example that we keep seeing over and over again. Non-perception of blueness does not mean we have transcended the blueness. In spite of that blueness appearing, if through knowledge I can determine that in that sky, in space, this blueness cannot appear, that is called as transcending blueness. Even snake rope example also, understanding that in that rope, the snake cannot appear. That is called as transcending the snake. So in that way we should understand, quietening the mind by itself is not called transcending the mind. Knowing its substratum as consciousness clearly, that is called as transcending the mind. Amani bhava, that is what the word that is used. That mind also is not another entity. Mind is of the nature of consciousness. Right? There are no two things there. That is called as transcending the mind. Okay. Can we experience Sakshi without a mind? So here also, we have been discussing this point that the word experience, we should be careful how we are using it. Sakshi is ever experienced, but if you want to claim it, if you want to speak about it, if you want to discuss about it, then we need a mind. Right? To be Sakshi, we don't need a mind. Sakshi is of the nature of being. But to discuss and know about it, then we need the mind. Because all knowledge has to happen in the mind alone. It has to happen as a thought. Right? That is why mind is needed. Will Vidyaranya Swamiji discuss the nature of Ishvara later? What is the role or relationship of Ishvara with Sakshi and Buddhi? So in this text in particular, Vidyaranya Swamiji is not specifically discussing topic of Ishvara. But whenever creation topic comes, we should understand Ishvara topic is already discussed. Consciousness with Maya Upadhi is called Ishvara. Consciousness with total conditioning is called as Ishvara. So that topic, when we discussed the 13th verse, right? 13th and 14th. That topic is already included there. So more elaboration of that topic is done in other texts, like in Panchadashi, lot of elaboration is done. Like in Vakya Vritti, lot of elaboration is done on what is the role of Ishvara. But in this text, very high level. Okay, good. So we'll pause here and continue next time. Hari Om, everyone.